Welcome back to part 3 of our interview with Norah Arsmont, to Leaving the Lies and Speaking Your Truth. And Norah, we're going to continue on with your interview here. And we're going to talk a little bit about, you had a lot of extended family in the House of Yahweh, such as aunts, uncles, I believe a grandmother, cousins, lots of people. Lots of your extended family was there from your mom's side. Do you want to talk about your experiences in your relationships with some of those extended family members?
Yeah, actually, there's one in particular that comes to mind, who was my Aunt Lisa, which many of you know. She actually passed away in the House of Yahweh, which was it was a very horrible situation. Growing up, she was always like super funny, always had a bubbly personality. She had a smile that could light up a room. She was just always had a good what is it? Like a good attitude, you know. She was always the fun aunt. Whenever we would see her, she'd be like, "Oh, you want some candy?" And we weren't allowed it. Like my parents specifically were just like, "No candy," and she'd always be like, "You want some candy?" She'd always be the fun aunt. Um, and we weren't really allowed to visit with her very often, which I'm not, even to this day, I'm not really sure why. Sorry.
That's okay.
My
Life. It's life.
IMAX. I don't know how to work these things.
Okay.
But anyway, we weren't really allowed to visit with her, which I really don't. I think it was more of the House of Yahweh, with the no hanging out. Even as an adult, you can be doing school, or you could be doing teachings. So, we didn't really get to go to her house much, but I do remember going over a couple times and visiting with her and her daughter. She has two daughters, but the first daughter, before she had her second daughter, we would go visit and play and kind of hang out, kind of like a secret thing because it wasn't allowed. So my mom got a little lenient, and we did kind of sneak around a little bit. And she did, we're gonna go see my sister if I want to go see my sister. Like that's my sister.
Right.
So let me clarify. Lisa, your aunt,
Yes,
was in the House of Yahweh, and you guys were you were told to still not go socialize, correct?
right. Yes, socializing frowned upon. I don't know too if it was because she wasn't as involved with all of the teachings, and she wasn't a Kohana. And for anyone who doesn't know what a Kohana is, it's pretty much you're married to an elder. So she wasn't really, I guess, someone special in the House of Yahweh, as in like she didn't go out. She wasn't a big teacher. She was more of a shy, collected.
Okay, I have a quick question because I know that your other aunt was a Kohana. So, were you able to socialize with your other aunt more freely?
Actually, no.
Okay, so that probably wasn't it then. It was probably just kind of in general, don't socialize.
Right. Well, with her situation was a little different because her husband was very controlling, and it was he kind of put the rumor out that she was rebellious, or she had he kind of made it to where she had a bad reputation almost, and a bad name.
Okay.
With you're going to get influenced by her and start talking, or you're going to maybe be able to stand up for yourself a little more than she might give you that kind of give you the courage, I guess. So,
well, may I interject I'm sorry, Menorah.
Oh.
Let me just interject, because I know the aunt that you're speaking about, and I know her very well. And I'm going to put this out there for anybody who may have heard those rumors, and that's exactly what they were. They were lies.
right.
Your aunt that you're speaking of was very honest, to her detriment. She was so honest, and she stood up for so many things that were wrong, to the point to where she was isolated, even from her own extended family, Melody. And she was deemed, and this is going to set Melody off, but she was deemed crazy.
Right.
And
it's just like you said, for standing up for the truth and,
exactly.
doing things that no one else knew and trying to bring light to those situations.
Yes. And let me put that to rest right now. Very intelligent, loving, kind, compassionate, not enough words or time in this interview to say about that aunt that we're speaking of. And this I know firsthand.
Yes, for
Go
sure.
ahead. I just wanted to verify that. Let's get back to your other aunt now.
Okay.
Right. So it was a thing, no hanging out, all of that. And so she was actually pregnant. I'm going to skip ahead, I guess, a little bit. She was pregnant with her second daughter. And we didn't get to see her much, which I always think of how we didn't really see her pregnant. We weren't really around her that much in those days, which it does kind of, hurt to know, because when she did give birth, she ended up having a lot of complications where the midwives weren't able to, I guess, take her to the hospital or call on someone because of how they teach about, there's no doctors to go to. The doctors are evil. They don't know the truth. They're going to, you're going to get a disease if you go to the doctor. So.
Can I just interject one more time?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do it, Mel.
No, go ahead.
I have to.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm holding back tears, so you go ahead.
Okay.
Say what you got to say.
The midwives did want to call. They were instructed not to.
Right. Yeah.
I just want to get that out there.
Okay.
Because this is truths.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You may not have known this, Norah.
Yeah, for sure.
But we have it.
Yeah.
On very good authority that they wanted to.
Yes.
Yeah. And like I said, it all goes back to the teachings on how they indoctrinate. So, but like you're scared, you want to, I'm sure, but it all goes back down to, well, you have to ask Yisrael, or you have to call.
There it is.
Yeah, you have to ask Yisrael for anything, or you have to call so-and-so to ask permission to ask Yisrael. Or, it's like third person party all the time. You can never just pick up the phone and call Yisrael anyway. You'd have to go through 3 other people. So I can't imagine what the midwives went through. Especially coming from the House of Yahweh teachings. And I think one of the midwives, she knew beforehand, but then having to come and have to you're learning all the House of Yahweh way of doing things now.
Right.
So I can only imagine, I'm sure, what was going through her head. I have no idea. Bless her heart, because it was a lot. But yeah, so my aunt did have a lot of complications, ended up losing a lot of blood. And, the way they do things in the House of Yahweh when you give birth, for one, is you're not allowed to have any family members. You're not allowed to have your husband. You're not allowed to have no one. It is your midwives and you. And so it always kind of haunts me to know that in her final days, losing all of that blood, just giving birth to her baby girl, she kind of went out alone, with just the midwife. She didn't have her family. She didn't have her husband. She didn't have her mother. Her baby girl was, and obviously another room probably, it's just really horrible to know that specifically. And I don't know, the details on what happened, but just knowing that, it just does hurt. And, just giving birth and then just having to recuperate is already enough. And then having the complications on top of that. It's just, what really, really irks me to this day is that, it could have went a different way, and if it weren't for Yisrael's way of teaching on, you have to do it a certain way, no hospitals, The doctors are wrong. You can't call the ambulance. You can't call professional help. People who are experienced in these types of things, which caused her to lose her life because of a simple, something that could have easily been avoided.
Yeah, I mean, to have to ask Yeshua for permission for just the small things or unimportant things is one thing, but that simple, somewhat simple rule, your family, your whole family, paid the ultimate price for that rule because they lost somebody. You guys all lost somebody,
Right.
and
We were
I'm so grateful that you are telling Lisa's story, because I think it is one that does need to be told, because she obviously can't tell her own story, and I think it's important for maybe even healing for your whole family, just to know that did take place, because I think there are still people out there that don't know her story and don't know how that happened or why that happened or that it did happen. And I know that your family's not the only one. There are other people who lost people, but I especially relate to your Aunt Lisa's story, because your Aunt Lisa was a child when I left. She was maybe 12, I'm going to guess. I don't really remember exactly, right around in there. But I do remember your Aunt Lisa, and I knew her as a child. And I wished I'd had the opportunity to know her more as an adult. But I was close enough with your family that I did remember her. And those things that you explained, even as a child, I could see that that's the same way she was as a child. She was always very energetic, had always had a very positive energy or vibe about her, and she brought that, to the people around her when she was in a room. And I think that it's going to be helpful for your whole family to hear her story, to hear that her story is out there being told.
Yeah. It just sucks too, not only was she robbed from all of us, which it's definitely hard, but just her children, watching her children be raised without their mother, and knowing that her baby girl, Lisa Love, the one that she lost giving birth to her, never even knew, never knew her at all. And Alana, the first baby girl, she was young, super young. So I'm not sure even what she really fully remembers, but it's like, it just sucks that we have to carry on the memories that only we know in our head. And, we don't even, and even then we don't have a whole lot, because we weren't allowed to even be around her. She died at 21 years old. That is just such a young age.
It is very much.
I always wonder, I'm like, I always wonder, what would she be doing right now? What path would she have taken? How would her children, be raised? I know that she loved her children more than anything.
Your grandma recently posted a picture of Lisa Love. She looks like a spitting image of her mom. It is almost uncanny. She looks just like her.
Yes, we have a little Lisa.
You do. She is her mom's namesake, and she looks so much like her. It's unbelievable, really.
She does. And going back on that situation with Lisa Love, not only did Yisrael rob us of having her here with us, but he actually wanted us to give Lisa Love to one of his wives, because she couldn't have children. And it's so selfish, it's like, here I am, here it is, your sister just died, and I just want to rip her child right from her as well. I remember my family, my aunt for one, saying no, my mom, no, this is not going to happen, because my aunt actually went and took the kids and potentially raised them for quite a while, actually. And I always, applaud her for doing that, because she didn't have everything, she didn't have her situation under, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She took them under a circumstance and loved them, and like they were her own children. And it definitely shows. And I always tell her, I'm like, you didn't have a job, you barely had money, and you still made it work. You had your 3 children to raise, and you raised these 2. Like, I was just like, Lisa would be really proud to know that
She
no
would
one
have.
let that happen, and that the kids stayed in the family, and we took responsibility, especially on what she did.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That I think knowing your family, there's no way in hell they would have let Yishel take
Yeah.
her children, or even the baby, just the baby. But I think that knowing that you kept the children, the babies were kept in your family was would have been very important to Lisa, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that means a lot to her to know that she stayed in that her children stayed in the family after that.
For sure. And what really, I don't know, whenever she died, we were all mourning, and I just remember it was the worst thing that ever happened. I remember when 9/11 happened, and it was really horrible, but when that happened, it really hit you, because you just seen her, it was your family member. It's not just anybody, even though it would suck either way, it would be horrible, but it just really hits you. And I remember going back to services and feasts, and no one asked anything.
That was going to be my next question, because we've talked to other people that have had loss. I was going to ask, was your family, or do you remember if your family was allowed to even properly grieve her? Because I know during that time people were being told not to grieve people that they lost. And I assume that's still what they teach there. I don't know that, but I'm going to assume it.
Yeah, it was more of a, trust in Yahweh. And I'm sure that's what the midwives got told, was a trust in Yahweh. If it's her time to go, that's what they always said. If it was your time to go, it was your time to go. And it was more of a, maybe she didn't believe it, or I remember at one point it was maybe she didn't trust in Yahweh, and that's why that happened to her. Or maybe she didn't really believe, and she wasn't in the teachings as much, and this is why it happened. And it was like, yeah.
Those kind of things make me so mad, because it's not taking any personal responsibility for the fact that it was their poor decision making, their poor rules set in place that caused her death, and yet to put it back on her and say it was because she didn't have enough faith, or she didn't believe, or she must have had sin in her life, or all of these things, to put it back on her is not only hurtful to her and her memory, but that's hurtful to your whole family. It's hurtful to everyone. That's awful. That's an awful thing to tell somebody.
Yeah. So it wasn't like, I'm sorry for your loss, or, I can only imagine how you're feeling right now. It was more so of, well, maybe this and this. And then also was more of, I just remember too, no one really knew what happened, and everyone was scared to even ask. It was like,
Yeah.
Everyone knew something, but it was like, you can't ask. You can't go up to someone and say, So it was almost like she fell away. It was almost like she just disappeared and left and moved on with everything. I just remember thinking it was like she died, but no one's really caring, it seemed like,
Right. Yeah, your family wasn't receiving, like, for example, if people are in a church and they lose a family member, they usually are surrounded by people that are showing them empathy and love, and and maybe making them a meal, or sending them some flowers, or doing something just to say, we're thinking about you guys, and we know this is really hard for you, and we just want you to know that you have people here for you. And to just have everybody not saying anything and acting like nothing happened, I don't even know how especially the adults, like your mom and your aunt and your uncle and your grandma, how they were able to function through that. I really don't. I don't know how they handled that. I just can't even imagine, and it makes me sad for them. It makes me sad for them that they didn't have that support that they needed. Maybe they were getting it from each other. I hope that maybe that brought them closer together and made them appreciate each other more and break the rules and give that support to one another.
I think after my aunt died, it was a wake-up call for sure. I mean, I almost a lot of things went out the door. It was like we started, like you said, we got closer. We would go to my aunt's house a little more every time. We would stay a little longer every time. We started almost like questioning more. Why is this happening? Well, why is this? So I think it definitely took a toll on our family for sure, especially my aunts. I'm sure my uncle too. I haven't really heard his side of everything, but I know my aunt and my mom for sure, because I just seen it firsthand. But
right. Well, you know what? That actually makes me really happy because I think Lisa would love that. She would love to know that something good came out of that. That it brought her family back together. And
I hope so. I hope she definitely is at peace too, because it always haunted me as a child knowing that, just the way she died, it wasn't a peaceful way to me. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And so I just hope that and also we're also trying to move her body because she is buried over there with the House of Yahweh.
Just the mass graves with just the Hawkins plaque on it with no real
So
real designated spot.
Yeah, she has no name. It's Hawkins. It's a brick looking type thing. And I mean, I drive by there all the time and I can see all the exact same looking stones. And I always wonder where she is. I drive by there. I don't even know. I can't even tell you she's on the third row. Nothing. She's in there somewhere. And it just haunts me. And I know that she would not want to be there. So we'll have to figure it out. But I know my parents have tried, and it is a little more difficult and hard than we thought. But one of these days.
Autumn, is that where your parents are? But this is a little off topic. I just was thinking about
Hazel is. I was not allowed to be there for Hazel at all. Daddy is not. Daddy is at the Euless Cemetery.
Okay.
Daddy has not a headstone, but he does have an actual placard with his name, his year, his date of service.
So you can find him.
Oh, I can find him. Oh, yeah.
But you can't find Hazel.
Hazel, I was not allowed to be a part of at all. I was told, Menorah, you can probably relate to this, or your mother or your family probably can. I was told that she's in the ground, and that's all that needs to be told. I don't even need to see her. It's of no benefit. She's dead.
Wow.
So and they don't bury people. I want to say too, they don't bury people how a normal funeral goes. They're in a wooden box that's super thin, with some my dad actually used to make them sometimes, and he would put like a egg foam, the little foams for your bed.
Yep.
He would put that in there, and then they started actually only using it's like some type of like grass or
felt.
Yeah. And
it's green felt.
Yes, and it was just knowing, like, I understand, yes, they're dead, they're gone. But just knowing that you're just sticking a human body that once was alive into just a wooden box and just shutting, I don't know, that just always, like, gets me, No,
it does seem very cold.
It's not even a proper burial, and you don't get to really grieve. You can never go there and leave flowers. You can never go on a hard day and just cry beside the, and just know, it's just like, you don't get that. Her children don't get that. Her children don't get to go talk to her. Nothing, it's like she's walked away over here and we don't even know where she is. So.
Yeah. She's over there somewhere, but we don't know where. Yeah, that's hard. That's hard.
She still hasn't got her justice, but I'm hoping and praying that one day she will, because she definitely deserves it.
I agree.
And her children deserve it.
Absolutely.
So this leads me to, not to take anything away from your aunt, because I knew your aunt too, and I know how much she loved.
Thank you for sharing your aunt's story, Menorah. I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. And your aunt loved all of her, at the time, it was just nieces. Sorry, she was greatly in love with all of you guys. But this leads me back to the question of, Menorah, do you remember being taught anything about medicine or doctors, or what exactly were they saying? Were you scared of doctors? Were you scared of medicine? Were you scared of hospitals? I mean,
yeah. So growing up, the dentist, no. You know, the dentist, you're going to get a disease. Everything is sexual transmitted diseases everywhere you go. You go to the dentist, they put the tools in your mouth. Well, so and so may have had hepatitis. So if they touch that tool in their mouth and then they're touching it and didn't clean it right and put it in your mouth, you're going to get hepatitis. So it was like, you know, go to the dentist and get hepatitis, or stay home and just deal with it. You know, if you had a toothache, you just eat some garlic and it'll take the pain away. And I've had to do that many times, where my jaw was swollen and, you know, had a huge toothache, and eat some garlic, it'll go away. And it goes away, but it comes right back, and it comes right back, because it's not, you know, the problem's not getting solved, it's not getting fixed. You're just sugarcoating it a little, just for the time being. And with doctors, the same thing. You know, I just remember always being scared of anything outside of the House of Yahweh. They teach you and teach you and teach you on how to fear the outside world. So we're getting taught our teachings, but they're also really engraving on how bad it is out there. And how you step out your door and go out into that world, and you leave the grounds and you leave the sanctuary and you go out there, this is what's going to happen. So I think for me, growing up and never knowing what was outside, you know, some people came into it, I was born into it. So being born into it was it was like, you are so scared, you do not do that, you don't even know what's out there. You know, there's
Right.
so much that could hurt you, and you could potentially die. I remember, you know, begging my mom to go to the store, just to go to the store, to go get my own toy, or to get my own notebook for services, to write my own notes, you know, just
Right.
little things, to get my own clothes. I mean, I don't think I went to a store until I was like 9.5, maybe 10-ish, that I finally left the grounds to go to a store or to do anything outside of that.
Wow.
So for like half of my life, I was in a bubble until we left, and it was just a whole new world.
Wow. That's
So-
hard to even relate to. For anybody who has not been there, that is really hard to relate to.
well, and then Mel, you got to think about this, Melody. So she's in a bubble for half of her life. 2 years later, they up and leave and go to the Philippines.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't just like a normal, it was a
No,
whole.
now when you're exposed to the world, it's a whole nother different culture. It's not even anything close to what you even maybe caught glimpses of on TV. It's something totally different.
So then you went to the Philippines, and where did you go after the Philippines? Did you come back to America?
No. So we went to the Philippines for a few months, and then my grandma, my dad's mom, was living in the land of Israel. So we actually went there for a few months, which was a whole new culture shock as well. It went from like poverty and, wow, this is sad, and, you know, scared that, you know, someone might kidnap you because you're American, to you can freely walk, and the men stay on this side and the women are on this side of the road. Or, you know, they keep Sabbath, and they shut down the whole city where we were. So it was almost like we had to like kind of continue our bubble in a different country and then go to a new country, and they believe almost similar things.
So do you speak Philippines? I don't know what the word is. Do you speak Filipino?
No, I did pick up on some little things when I was there, but I don't speak the language.
And do you speak Hebrew?
No. I did pick up a few things, but no.
So essentially, bubble, Philippines, no
Bubble.
English.
Still bubble.
Yes. Israel, bubble,
Different bubble.
no English. You know, I mean, and how old were you when you finally moved back to the States?
I think I had my 13th birthday, so it was about almost a full year, almost. It was like about like, it wasn't very long. It was a few months in this country and like a few months in the other country. So I want to say maybe like a year-ish,
Okay.
if that.
Maybe
My
less.
time's all over the place, but yeah. We finally came back, but we were also in another state. So we came back and we went to Louisiana.
Okay.
Yeah. So, sorry about that.
That's
So
okay.
yeah, so we went from different countries to a different state, which is another culture. And then we went to Nebraska. We just traveled after that for my dad's work. And then we made it back to Texas whenever I was 14, 15 maybe.
Okay.
Or so. And then I ended up leaving my parents' house when I was 16, just because of the fact that, you know, they still had a cult mentality of, you know, no public school, no friends outside of our religion. And I wanted that. And I wanted a normal life. I wanted to celebrate birthdays. I wanted to celebrate the holidays. And I've always wanted to. It was always something that I wanted to do, even in the House of Yahweh. I lived in my bubble in the House of Yahweh, but when I went home, it was like, I wish I could do all the things that normal people did when I did catch a glimpse, you know?
Right.
So you left your parents' house now at the age of 16. Yeah. Wow, babe. Wow. I have to ask this question because, you know, people are wondering, did you have to live on the streets? Did you have some place to go? Did you have family you could lean on?
Right. So I actually had a best friend that I knew my whole life from the House of Yahweh. Whenever it was a few years before I left my house, so we were both the age of 14. We're only a few months apart. So I had gotten her to leave the House of Yahweh, and she got the courage to leave. And then she moved back to her family's house in Louisiana, and I was still in contact with her. So whenever I left my parents' house, I would just went and lived with her parents and her family. So,
did you go to school at that point, or were you too old, or?
Yeah, so it was very hard, very hard. I went from, you know, homeschooling here and there to having to go take tests and having to go to school with people I didn't know. It was a whole new experience with that as well. So yeah, so I did go to public school. They had to put me in like a couple grades below because I wasn't up to speed, right. Which really was very hard because I was 16. I think I was about to turn 17 or just turned 17 when I finally went to school, and I was in 8th grade. And wow. They didn't want to move me up because I was so far behind. And even in 8th grade, I was still like, what is this? You know,
you were still struggling.
Yeah, I was like, I knew a little bit, but it was like major shock. Like it was hard. It was very hard to conform for sure.
Right. Did you end up graduating high school?
I did. Not through that high school, but I did. Yeah. So you can do it. It's very, very hard, but I did it, and it takes a lot of work and dedication, but if you want to do it, you can do it. I mean, I came from growing up in a cult to knowing hardly anything. I didn't know independence. I didn't know Independence Day. I didn't know when our country was established. Like, just things that you should know. I didn't know what 5 times 5 or, you know, just little things.
Right.
That I struggled with, but I got it. And, you know, you do have kids that, you know, almost, well, why don't you know that? Well, what's wrong with you? Or, you know, you were homeschooled, but you weren't homeschooled? Or, you know, why was your last name Hawkins and then now it's not? Because when I started school, it was Hawkins, and then I ended up changing later on, and it was like, were you married? Like, what happened? And it's like, you have to explain that, but in like a way that they're going to understand. And sometimes they still don't understand. It's like, well, your parents let you do that? What the what's wrong with them? Or, you know, didn't they know, or this? And it's like, no, you know, it's like, it's a culture shock to them as well.
Right.
So having to deal with that was the.
And for anybody who might be watching, all members of the House of Yahweh, at some point in time, I don't know exactly when it happened, were told to change their last name to Hawkins. So all members had the last name of Hawkins. And to this day, as far as I know, once you are baptized, I think is that what it is? Do you know, Autumn? Is it baptism? When they change
I think it's once you join officially, so yes, it would be baptism.
Okay. And probably babies that are born are automatically Hawkins now?
Yes.
Okay.
It happened in I had my youngest in March of 97, and so it had to have been at the late of 96, the beginning of 97, when the Taylor County Courthouse was flooded with House of Yahweh people changing their names, whether they wanted to or not, you know.
Okay.
I actually have a friend that works at the Baird Courthouse, and she told me she sees people coming in all the time, young, marrying older, or having to like change their names and do all of that. And she always said, it's so, they don't even look like they know each other. And I said, they probably don't know each other, because sometimes they would marry the younger, like the people out of town would marry, but they never even met, or they'll never see each other again, just so they can be legal here.
Oh.
And get the name Hawkins and be legal. So she would always be like, do y'all just meet right then and there? Because they didn't know anything. And I was like, so we'd sit there and ask them questions, and they were just like, yeah. Wow. And I said, yeah, that's almost probably a normal thing now, which I never knew about going out into the world and doing it.
Okay. We're down to under 2 minutes. I think we might have to do
I
a
definitely
part 4.
remember inside the House of Yahweh.
Did you guys hear me? Hello? We lost you. Hello? Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we do need to.
Okay.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to do a part 4.
Yes, we need a part 4.
Okay, so we're going to do a part 4. So for our first time ever, we're going to be back with part 4. So